importing the map. Now that you've understand how it works in the txt file, you should be able to understand that the exact same rules apply for import mapping. This time around, just switching from BIMDB war, for example, to IFC war, and writing it the other way around, so IFC war to BIMDB war. And let me just quickly show you what I mean. Hope you'll see my screen. It should be okay now. And if I go on to import mapping, which I've just written earlier. So what I have done is, instead of comparing against export mapping 1, let me see if I could put this side by side with you. So instead of doing a BIMDB footing to IFC column, so BIM to IFC, now I'm doing from IFC to BIM, because I'll be importing an IFC model into BricsCAD, but not having to later on manually reclassify the elements to my desired classification. So I am basically hacking, you can say, bringing something that should be a wall and change it to a column. I have something called a wall standard case. And why? Because if I could open my BIM viewer again, I realized that when we exported the model out earlier, so is this the correct one? You notice that there are something funny going on by the default mapping, which is the BIM wall in BricsCAD. Some of them became IFC wall standard case, meaning it's reading part of a covering or something, etc. And you can find more details up here in the IFC structure. Of course, we're not going to delve into it today, but I'm just letting you know that I'm including that one so that when we later import that model back into BricsCAD, I want it to turn into a column classification. I'm also trying to be funny by changing a door back into a window and keeping a window to a BIM window. And I'm skipping the rest. So no structural elements, no M&E elements, we don't have that as well. And let's see what we have got. So of course, you can play around with these things, or you can even remove the walls and just keep the doors and the windows. So you're just importing simply doors and windows, the fenestrations. So let's close these two. And over here, start a new drawing. I'll close this guy actually. Okay. Import. So back to my settings, my export is this one. The mapping file path, it is the same, mapping 2. And one thing to also let you know, so the space between these two elements in this syntax, how you would do this is not your normal space on your space bar. This is actually a tab. So you do a long tab and you get a long one compared to a space. So it makes a difference, so that it now because your text file has a particular format of reading it, BricsCAD can tell that this is actually a separate column, and they can tell that this, for example, this column will become a column in that example, in this example. So if that's set, import all set correctly, and I'll just go on here and import a file that we just used earlier. So main building arch IFC. So there you have it. So when I hover, oh yeah, I messed up the roof as well. So there you have it. My roof was skipped, if you could remember. Let me just go back here. My roof isn't here. So my roof belongs to the asterisk, so it's skipped. My wall, so both kinds of wall should become a column, which it is now a column. If I click onto it, it tells me it's a column. What else have I done? I've also done a door, IFC door, to a DB window, which I can just hide this space for now. This is in my way. And now it's a window. Windows being window because I left it at default, which tells me that BricsCAD has quite nicely mapped these things accordingly to what I want. So there you have it. This is how you can modify your import mapping process by simply, again, tweaking a text file. And the only thing to remember, whilst the syntax is the same, it's just this space in between them, which is a tab, not a spacebar hit. Right, so let's move on to the next one. So the next one is about the Vcf panel. If you go onto my side panel on my left, that's the one at the bottom, and it's the Vcf panel. So a Vcf panel is where you can actually kind of have the option to lock into a Vcf service, such as BIM collab, BIM sync, or even BIM track. But we are not going to do these linking of services today because of, well, obviously of practical reasons and time constraints. So I'm just going to cover the import of a Vcf file. So let me just close this model because we'll be using another RFC model. And this time around, this is going to be a structure model. And again, one point to note as well is just to make sure your settings are in the default settings. So no more import, no more export, because as you know, when you close your BricsCAD, when you close a file, it remembers all your preferences from workspace, settings, etc. So it's always wise to make sure that you check these guys out before you do any new stuff. And let me just close this, and I'll just do a restart of the drawing just to be sure. So new drawing, I'm just going to quickly import this West structure file that you can find in your collaboration folder in our shared materials. And you should be able to see that, there you go. This is the structural model, a very basic structural model, but it's something that it could have been shared with a few other of your collaborators. Perhaps you're, of course, maybe a structural engineer dealing with a model and you are working together with him as a colleague, and he's got some, and he's left some notes or comments or markups that he would like to share with you through another VCF service. But now he's exported a VCF file, which you can now import it into BricsCAD. So again, navigate to a folder, go onto VCF, open it up, and you find the issue in question that your colleague would like to have you to check out. So issues would normally be all listed out here, but obviously this is just one issue, and you can just click once into it, hit show all details, and it tells you basically what desirable information that you would like. Say date, the due date, date created, who was the author, who actually started this issue checking. It might be a clash or etc. And who is it assigned to? Well, normally it's going to be assigned to myself. Whether the status is active or not, this is something that you would do in your VCF service, but not over here. So over in this panel, you can see, you can click in for more further information, and it brings your camera pointing straight at the node in question. It saves the camera view, and with your colleagues accompanying node over here from Jacob, for example, it's asking me to solve this structural node to use either bolted connections and end plates. So now I know, for example, which part of the model he was referring to on the phone when he was describing it on the phone. Now you know which part exactly without having to give me a brick bubble character, for example. Another thing for this same thing is they can, in one instance of a issue, you can put in more kind of suggestions or even solution. So the next solution or next suggestion would be to use a Hinge connection for bracing members, for example. So this is a way for a design team to communicate regardless of what BIM software they might have. So if they sign up themselves to a VCF service, such as BIM Collab or BIM Sync, do their kind of markups or their annotations, etc., and just let the issues be known. Export it to a Vcf file, which you can later import into BricsCAD through the panel over here. This will be something that's very easy for the design team to navigate if they are using BricsCAD. So with that said,